Hello everyone and welcome to the Girls in Movement podcast, where we talk to founders and influencers from across the globe. It's been a really exciting past few weeks. So we've recently returned from a trip to India, where we connected with schools in local villages, providing them with supplies for the children, and I suppose thinking of ideas around the next steps for the project, which was really cool. So I mean, it's been amazing coming back as well and seeing just through the power of social media, random people wanting to kind of donate stuff to give to the schools there in India as well. So thank you so much for those who are kind of sending stuff to my house. My mum's going to be like, what is happening? So yeah, it's always exciting to see that. I'm hugely excited about our guest today as well. So he's an extremely talented individual, probably one of the most kind of positive influences on my social media feed. He's known as a mind coach. He produces a lot of content, and I suppose an all-round creative. I came across my guest when I was interviewing the creators of Turbans and Tails, and I suppose the words I would describe this individual is very calm, very peaceful, and I suppose influential in the world of kind of meditation, yoga, and yeah, creating cool content, I suppose. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Chaz Fliy to the show. How are you?
Yo, yeah. Thank you for such a great introduction. I don't think I've ever had an introduction like that. Thank you so much. Yes, I'm really, really excited to be here, and thank you for bringing me on the show, because I know you've had some great people on the show, and I think it's just humbling and blessed. You know, it's a blessing to be here and speaking to you after so long. You know.
Yeah, no, hugely appreciate it, and with all my guests, I appreciate their time that they kind of put out to have this call. So let's start from the beginning. So where did you always know that you kind of had a passion for content creation? Kind of, I mean, what you do is kind of meditation, yoga, and about mindfulness on your social media. But was this what you wanted to do from the start? Where did it all begin, I suppose?
So when we talk about creativity, and people say I'm creative, and I think, you know, the perception of people, how they see me is always, you know, I'm doing creative things or I'm in this creative industry. But when people ask me that kind of question, you know, do I have a passion for content creation or anything in that kind of sector? The way I usually respond is that, you know, creativity is within all of us, and it's just, I see it more as a passion, opposed to something that I do, and it's something that I, you know, because I simply love creating and exploring and discovering. I just feel like everything I've ever done since a child up until now, from when I was at school, when I went to college and university, and as soon as I left university, it's always been towards the arts or something creative, you know, whether it be all my studies and my A-levels and my, you know, all my qualifications that I did at university and further education or whatnot, has always been creative related. And then as soon as I came out of university, the first thing I wanted to do is, before going into a job, I had that kind of passion, you know, or that kind of interest to just build a business. So I built a design agency. So I set up an agency, because at that point, you know, I was quite confident, and my network within music, it was quite, so my relationship with people in the music industry was quite at high. I kind of knew a lot of people because I was a DJ at that point, and I was doing music production. So I ended up doing a lot of design work for a lot of artists, a lot of music labels, a lot of events. I was doing events myself, and one thing led to another, and this agency became, you know, it was quite successful. I did well from it. Then I was headhunted into a company, a creative ad agency in London, and from there I was headhunted again to a bigger creative agency, and then I got to a point in my career where, alongside all of this, you know, career development and all these kind of interests that I was really excited about being in, I was also studying a lot of meditation, and I was going to a yoga training, and I was doing all this kind of spiritual practice alongside all of my career development, which I reached a point when I was probably at the highest I could possibly be at in the creative sector of what I kind of do, that I just thought, okay, ethically something's not resonating anymore, and I just decided to leave. As soon as I left, I created another company, which is today is called Creating Flow, which is more based around helping now startup companies with helping them get that big agency kind of thinking, but
Nice.
but for the kind of smaller companies who haven't got the budget, they haven't got the resources, or they haven't got the funds, to be honest. So my kind of philosophy for the business was, I want to create something where, I know how the mainstream agency works, I know how the ad agency works, but I know a lot of people out there who are starting businesses don't know much about marketing, don't know much about branding, and if they do, it's very limited, like starting with just probably a simple logo and they think that's a brand. So I help people really just help them not only discover what their brand is, but discover who they are, because that's really key to everything that the business represents. Because alongside when I was going through my spiritual practice and my coaching, I was really into self-development. And because of self-development, that really helped me excel in my life. And I always believe that having the right mindset, and a positive mindset, and the right frame of mindset in business or your personal life is what's going to really ultimately get you to where you need to be. And without it sounding like there's a goal at the end of it, it's kind of being aware of your journey at the same time, enjoying the journey, being happy on the journey, and how to overcome things that might seem like like negative kind of challenges that you might have, and how to overcome them, because we all kind of cross these paths, whether it's going into business yourself or going in as a startup, or anything in life that we go through. It's not just good business skills you need good life skills. And so what I was able to do is amalgamate all the kind of spiritual teachings that I have been able to, I'm blessed to have learned through really great guides and teachers, but then also apply everything that I know about how to put a brand together, how to get a business launched really quickly from an entrepreneurial perspective, and then at the same time help people with get the right mindset, because that's ultimately that's what's going to drive you going forward.
And I suppose, no, go on, carry on.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, I don't know if I've just summarized the whole podcast for you in that one paragraph.
That's the end of the show now, done.
See you later, everyone.
No, I mean, it's interesting because I come from a world of startups as well, and that word mindfulness and wellness is huge at the moment. It's like a complete buzzword, and it's bringing that mindset into startups, because I think what you're saying, I mean, is it yourself, or are you part of, is there a wider team within the content creation?
So we have a team with, we've got the right people in the right places, all with the same philosophy of what I initially built the business as, to help people, to serve people, to shake a few feathers and work with the innovators and disruptors, So we've all got the same mindset, but our number one key thing with anyone who's working with us, whether it's our clients or whether it's my team, is that we need to help people, we need to serve people, we need to really help them make progress genuinely and authentically.
I suppose you've got that vision now, which is kind of the biggest challenge for startups, is what is the vision of the company. And I love as well, I mean, for me, a big thing, especially for the company I work in, and when you look at startups, working with the right people, not just physically in the company you work for, but also the customers and your clients, etc., that you're working with, to make sure that they're on the same page as you. And do you feel like, I mean, so becoming, obviously, with the kind of meditation and doing yoga, do you feel like that has probably advanced like your business itself, because you've got that whole mindfulness side of your life and then bringing that into the business world? Because I think, I mean, having a business yourself, it's quite a lonely journey for a while, because it's late nights, it's am I doing the right thing, and constantly kind of needing that assurance. But do you feel like that's really helped you kind of drive what you're trying to create as well?
Absolutely. And with that question, I think it's really relevant, and it's a really good question because it's what I do workshops on today. It's, I help when I do live events or workshops, or if I'm now going into schools, or if I'm going into companies and talking. It's really how do you get more productive or innovative through meditation, and before, meditation linked to creativity wouldn't really go, and it wasn't the kind of thing that people would associate together. But I think when I was in more agency, when we had to think of ideas, I was thinking from them from a calmer mind helped me join the dots a lot easier to create new ideas. Whereas people say they work really good under pressure, but I don't believe that's the case. I think you can get results under pressure, but working under pressure and being creative under pressure, I think, is a different story. So I think having mindfulness and wellness in a business today is really important, just for productivity and creativity.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I don't want to assume that you're religious or not religious, but I mean, have you come from a background where meditation is key in your life? I mean, how has religion played a vital role in kind of doing this whole passion, I suppose, and looking more into meditation and yoga?
Yeah, so my initial introduction to meditation was derived from looking at religion. Okay, and this is the link that I used to go to the gym, and I used to be one of those guys that would be about how I look, how much strength I've got. I could kickbox, I could lift a lot over my shoulders. I was quite strong and had big arms and then big shoulders and all that kind of stuff. And my brother used to go to yoga classes.
Yeah.
And every time I used to hear about yoga classes, I always had the association that it was for girls. Surely it can't be that great. What kind of person does yoga? What kind of man does yoga? And what happened is I heard him talking about yoga, but he didn't really make it obvious that he's going. I would hear it through my mum saying, "Oh, he's gone to yoga." So I looked up the kind of yoga he was doing, which was Kundalini yoga, and I took it to, I went to the internet to just do a little bit of research, let's check what it was, and I found that there was these people doing Kundalini yoga, and at that point they were, they were Westerners, and they were white. They were white people doing yoga, and they had turbans and they had beards, and they were all dressed in white, and they were all chanting Sikh mantras.
Oh, wow.
And to me, this was fascinating. Yeah, and to me, I was like, what's it that they know that I don't? And I'm going around telling everyone, I'm of Sikh religion. I'm telling everyone that I'm a Sikh, but these guys seem more connected than me. Now, I went into a class out of curiosity because I was just like, wow, there must be something to it. And I went into the first class and I had an experience which I'll never forget. And I think because of my first experience with in a Kundalini yoga class, that was the first time I ever really felt real peace and stillness. And as much as I was doing other kind of spiritual practices, which all were interlinked, and they all were helping me on my kind of learning of different philosophies and different schools of thought, I was, this one thing was the practice that really gave me the stillness that nothing else had given me, and never, to be honest, be taught to me from whether it was religion or whether it was through any other kind of teacher or guru, whoever we had met in my life, that no one had told me this practice existed and that it could make me feel like this. And I think from that practice, I really connected to it. It helped me address my ego as a man. Like I went from that I can lift my teacher over the head, I can lift my teacher over my shoulders. I went from that kind of thought process to struggling to do an exercise where I had to lift my own shoulders up for more than 3 minutes. So lift my arms up, and then my shoulders would feel that tension. And it made me question a lot about not only the mindset, but also what we're capable of doing as human beings, and how much of a muscle this mind is, and how we can get to control this, or take back control of our mind. Because it seems like, I really felt like my mind had taken over me. And I think now when I look back as, if religion has actually ever played a role in my life and maybe the decisions that I've made, it's, it was because of the yoga, Kundalini yoga being related to the religion, right? It was an introduction to it. So it was a catalyst for me to get into it. And I think, has it played a vital role, or a part of the role of religion? Yeah, it probably has, because I love the values and the principles that it also gives me as well. That's also helped me to guide my way through life, and also stop talking about these principles and actually start applying them and teaching them to others.
Yeah, no, I like that. And I mean, that moves me on to my next question. So, do you have any sort of like advice for people who are struggling with that positive mindset and changing habits? I mean, I suppose individuals from the age, I suppose people in their 20s really who are struggling with this. Because I mean, as I said before, like wellness is a big thing, and kind of the whole words like anxiety is always thrown around, and I think that's the hardest thing. I mean, when you talk about going into one class and feeling at peace, kind of after one class, it's all about that mindset and what you're kind of putting out there. So what advice would you give for people who struggle with that?
One of the first pieces of advice I would give is letting go of any expectations.
Yeah.
So when you have expectations in your life about how you want your life to be, it will only incur suffering. If your expectations don't go to how you want them to be, then you get upset, and these are just based on projections of things that haven't really happened yet, but you really want to happen, so
Yeah.
people who struggle with having a positive mindset, it's not having a positive mindset. It's not one of those, I need to be positive every day. I need to be happy every day. I need to, therefore, if I have a positive attitude, everything in my life will be positive. It doesn't really work that way, because you need to still go into the mind and remove the weeds. You need to go and get the dirt out. You need to be able to look at yourself as a mirror and say, hold on, what do I need to do to really change who I am? And where is the happiness? There's, I teach a 7-step guide, 7 steps to happiness, and that's like commitment, character, dignity, divinity, grace, and that power to sacrifice. That's the steps to happiness. But when people want, when people who struggle with a positive mindset, I think the main thing to start helping yourself is, let go of expectations, or don't expect the outcomes to really be what you want. It's great to have goals and an idea and set that intention, but don't get upset if it doesn't work out that way. That's the first thing, letting go. Yeah. And then it's about being grateful for what you currently have, and we hear a lot of this especially in the mindfulness space, is that, be present, be grateful for what you've got. But what does that really mean? We like saying it. We like putting these quotes up on Instagram. We love doing all this stuff that people like to hear about living this positive life. We tell people we listen to The Secret. We tell people we go to motivational seminars and we listen to these books. But it's how do you apply these things, which is the challenge, And so, when you're able to do something as easy as being grateful for the little things. I'm not saying be grateful for all the big things and the superficial things. Being grateful for your breath that you take in the morning. When was the last time you did that? When was the last time you were grateful? We say be grateful for your food and be grateful for, your shelter and everything. But when you look on the grand scheme of things, are you grateful for just the planet giving you the oxygen, clean oxygen? You still have clean water. You still have, so many other things that you can still be grateful for. You can be grateful for that if you went outside, that there's not a maniac outside, and there might be a graceful lady outside. We're not grateful for things that are, we're looking for superficial things to be grateful for, opposed to just life and just being and being grateful for that moment, And then lastly, I mean, as we say, and most cultures and religions say this about the people you surround yourself with, with Sangha. So who you surround yourself with is ultimately who you will become. And from a positive mindset perspective, is naturally the more negative people you surround yourself with, people who complain, there's always something wrong with something, or they like to gossip, or they're just a bit of they're like toxin in the brain. Okay, so if you're around these kind of people, you need to let go of them, or you need to change your circle, because ultimately that it's like a virus, and it will get into you, and you won't know that's happening to you. So it's not easy nowadays sometimes just to say, okay, I'm leaving my circle of friends and I'm going to find these new positive friends, because the grass isn't always green on the other side either, So, but it's about being aware of people in your circles, to be honest, and how they're actually treating you. How do you feel around these people? And, for you to be, it's like there's a saying, like when there's one crab trying to leave the bucket, the other crabs will always pull it back down. Okay, so it's the same thing, and that it's kind of the journey of when you're trying to go towards that positive mindset, everything all of a sudden becomes a struggle. Everything gets enhanced, everything becomes a bit more of a challenge, because you're taking your mind, you're putting yourself in a different kind of scenario. You're out of your comfort zone as well. You actually don't know where you're headed. You want something, but you don't know what to you don't know what the expectation is. You don't know what the result of you don't know what your result is going to be of where you're headed. You say you want these people, but you don't know what's going to happen when you get there. So I hope that answers the question.
No, it definitely does, and that's really good advice. Now, I like the one kind of more around who you surround yourself with, because I suppose as you kind of develop in your role in work and kind of in your social life as well, you realize that kind of as you get older, when you're younger, when your parents tell you shouldn't be hanging around with those people, you're just like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
But as you get older, you're like, actually, no, I know what they were saying. But I mean, for yourself, like, who have been some sort of key mentors in your life, and how have they helped you?
So I'm a massive fan of mentors and coaches, because I'm a trained coach and I mentor people myself. And the reason I'm a fan is because what a mentor can do is see what's good for you. They most of the time we spend in the frame and we can't see ourselves. A mentor or a coach can basically see what you need to do and guide you there, because they know the shortcuts. Yeah. So the kind of people who've really helped me in my life do that, whether they have actually been a coach physically helping me or a digital coach, like I've used them from watching their YouTube series or lectures online. Have been people just like whether it's Tony Robbins or Les Brown and Zig Ziglar. These are like motivational speakers, and I've done some of their programs and I've gone there and they've transformed me. But then from the other flip side is, from spiritual guidance and mentoring, I've had people like Yogi Bhajan, who's not with us now, but all of his teachings were online, and I was able to access them, whether it was video form when I did teacher training, when I teach. And then, even people like my brother, for example, sometimes these mentors and, these people that you learn from are not people that are always the famous ones or the ones most out there. Because of my brother, he introduced me to some of these things in the first place. He's influenced how I listen to music. He's influenced my education when it comes to self-development by having the books and me picking them up once he's finished them. So there's been influences and mentors in that sense. And then, one of the grand fathers of the mentors that, I can't forget to mention, and it's probably a bit abstract to say, is, someone like Guru Gobind Singh, from a religious stance, is you look at the values and the principles that one person can have, and you think it's, you would believe that this person might be a superhero, but they were very real, For someone to have courage, compassion, this education, to be a creative, to have all these kind of elements, and and serve people and change the world, make an army, and I look at these kind of qualities, and you don't see these people today that are representing that, but these people were very real, and they're not fiction, they're not make believe, So So it's like people like that. I can reference loads of people who've been mentors and guides for my life, but it's also people that I've resonated with, which I love their values, and then I'm able to adapt them as well. Opposed to just watching and looking at these people, but not able to really take their advice on.
Yeah. And I mean, so you started kind of, I suppose, doing speaking and speaking in front of crowds, but before that you were working in agencies. Did you find that quite hard to kind of suddenly stand up in front of people and talk about this topic around mindfulness and wellness?
So I was invited to Brunel University. So they did an event called Pechakucha, and they did quite a big, innovative, creative technology event called Made in Brunel. And this is recognized by, major brands. We had Coke there, we had Dyson, and we have all these kind of big, innovative brands and companies coming. And I was asked to speak about, meditation and innovation. And for me to go up there after hearing the other talks about, all these cool things that are coming out and, the direction of design and technology, and for me to come on the stage and talk about spirituality, yes, it was a bit daunting. But I think when you know and you believe in what you talk about and you can actually see the results, and it's real, it's easier to talk about it and you shouldn't fear it. If you're talking the truth, then there's nothing wrong in what you're saying. Public speaking might be obviously one of the biggest fears that people have,
Yeah.
but it's when you believe in what you're talking about, you shouldn't be ashamed of talking about it.
Yeah.
And if you're truly coming from, like a loving space, if you're coming from the heart and you're being authentic and you really genuinely think you're doing something good, then you will deliver that to the best that you can. So I think anytime, even when I was in agencies, and I had to pitch to big brands like, Virgin or British Heart Foundation or NHS, or, some other kind of FMPG drink brands or food brands, when I was talking to these kind of guys, I would always still use a holistic approach. I might bring in some spiritual jargon because it all makes sense. Sometimes we think that spirituality is uncool. We think that it has no place in a corporate world or commercial world. But when you look at most of stories now, whether it's in advertising or in commercial, they all have some kind of connection to people. It has a human connection, and that's what spirituality is also about. So now I think things have changed since I've kind of left that industry. But now when I'm talking to a broader audience and I'm bringing in the topics of mindfulness and meditation to help your business or for you to become innovative or more creative, I think it's become slightly easier because most people are talking about it anyway. But there isn't anyone, I don't feel, really championing that space where they've actually said it's making change and you must do it, especially if you look like me, and I've got a turban and a beard in a white space,
Yeah. No, but yeah, I mean, you're championing it through and through. So, I mean, keep doing what you're doing. And do you have kind of what's coming up, I suppose, for the rest of 2019? Are you traveling with what you're doing at the moment? Like any key projects you're working on?
Yeah, so as a content creator, that takes me far and wide. I'm constantly traveling every few months. I'll be in Africa, I'll be in Spain and Italy. So that keeps me busy, as well as creating my own content. So that keeps me busy. And there's a lot more to come out in terms of spreading the message of making meditation easy, making it practical, making spirituality easy is one of my core projects for this year. I also work with a number of charities, and they're all to do with spreading awareness of spirituality, and I create content for them. So we've got some really good things coming out. And just like yourself, when you talked about, you told me in the past about the kind of projects you're doing in India, which are really exciting. You're wanting to give them resources and help schools and children, for example. is we're kind of working on similar projects now, where we've created some products which are again created. They're all creative tools that we've created, and we want to bring these projects out to less fortunate people, and help people, not only just with giving them stuff, but giving them stuff which will help them become mindful, help them become a bit more creative. Maybe, a coloring pencil kit might be more better than just a pen, so we're looking at ideas of how we can now reach out with, with all the tools we all have, all of us. There's no excuse why we can't now help everyone around the world, get to the level and education that we're also being able to get from here, So everyone deserves the opportunities. And now I think for this year, we're really looking at how people can obviously not only become more in tune with themselves and get that mindset, but also create opportunities for themselves, and that's also a part of the creative process, and creativity and spirituality go hand in hand, because creativity, because creativity is within everything, and that's what spirituality is, a constant vibration of creation, so it's just something that, we're going with the flow, we're in flow, we carry on, and, we're just going to see what the future unfolds for us, and working with yourself and, jumping on podcasts like this to get the awareness out is a really good and positive step for us.
Nice. And just kind of, I suppose you're talking about projects previously. I mean, what is one project that kind of stands out so far in your career that you always look back on and think, wow, that was amazing? I mean, that can be whether one of your guest speaking slots, or whether that's kind of a content creation, or when you're in the agencies.
Yeah. So I think there's been some big wins. I'm not going to lie. There's been some exciting projects that I've been involved in quite a few things, which has really been exciting. But I think one that you're aware of is in the last 5 years, and I think more recently, the Sing project, which was a huge success, because it kind of encompassed and embraced everything that I believe in, and I was a part of the project, and it was all about a project which represented the turban and beard, especially from the Sikh tradition. And it was about, an awareness. It was an awareness project. It was about showing all types of Sikhs and Singhs in particular, in what kind of identities they have, what roles they play in society, and that, this project went far and wide again. It went to New York, it went around the world. The exhibition got a lot of traction from major publications, and, and my picture in particular went far and wide, which was a blessing, and also a bit of a, it was one of those moments that, you could be somewhere at a party and someone would come up to you and say, "Are you that guy?" And we're like, "Yeah, Chaz Fliy, yes, I am." So, it's been an exciting journey. And yes, I think to put the cherry on the top, they released a book just a few months back, which I feel like, as a project, if anyone in 10, 20 years looks back and wants to know about what Sikhs look like, or, who Singhs were, for example, there's a reference, there's good photography, there's good creative work, there's a book that can tell you everything about it, and to be a part of that, I think that's been quite humbling,
Yeah, and I mean, it was literally your face kind of everywhere. I remember I was researching for the project, and I would always see Chaz Fly's face, and I was like, oh my God, who is this guy? And do you know what I love about that book? It's the stories which you read about these incredible people across the world. It's so cool.
Yeah, and I think that was, the reason you made me just think a little bit, because as much as all these other kind of projects I've been able to be involved with, when you see a commercial on TV, or you see it on a big billboard, or you see something being executed so well, like, that gives you that happiness for that moment, because it's from a career perspective, like everything that you've worked for is, there you go, you've seen it now, But I think this one is just deeper, because it's very, very close to, it's an awareness thing, like, and I'm very much about people waking up, people being able to see the world a bit differently. If people haven't seen it before, if one person was affected to see a brown face with a turban and beard a bit differently, then the project did what it needed to do. You know, if 100 people now see us differently, then great, you know. And to also add all my, you know, the kind of skills that I had to be able to give to the project as well really helped. It wasn't just I turned up on a photo shoot, you know, it was helping with casting and helping with, you know, just general promotion of the event, you know, or the book itself or the project, and getting everyone involved. That was really nice to see that it actually all went through, you know, it was a success, and that you were also a part of it, you know.
Yeah, no, it was incredible. And we went to kind of the book launch as well. And it was just, it was
Yeah,
nice to, like, you're in a room of all these people. Obviously, not everyone from the book could be there because they're from all over the world. But yeah, and that the project went to New York as well. It's, yeah, hats off to them and yourself as well for being involved in it.
yeah.
And I suppose my final question, which I love to ask all my guests, is if you could give your younger self any advice, what would it be?
Okay. Without saying, you know, you better sort your dress sense out when you're younger. That's one thing, because you know, we've all had some funky days back in the past. But I think now, from hindsight, when you look back, I mean, everything that we know now is, you know, I've got nieces and nephews, and we try to teach them all about, you know, these spiritual practices and all this kind of stuff. And, you know, you should try meditating, you know, and it's hard even at that age, if you're talking about teens, you know, to really understand what that means, you know. And I could still believe if I went back to the future and I went to talk to me, I still wouldn't get it, you know, because it's something that you have to experience, and when the time's ready, you know, it just happens when it needs to happen. I think one of the key things that I would love to go and tell myself, and I do say it to a lot of people now, is focus. You know, when you're able to focus on one thing at a time, and even if you're one of those people that, you know, you've got ideas all the time and you chase the shiny objects and you want to do everything all the time, when you focus on one thing at a time, that's where you'll see real growth and you'll see real success. You know, it's really good to have these ideas and try all the kind of, try all the businesses and try everything. And sometimes that does benefit you, you know, all these multiple skills will help you.
Yeah.
But when you can focus on one thing at a time and do it well, that's when you will see results, you know. And also then if you get a mentor on top of that, then you can fast track the whole thing. You know, I think them two kind of things, you know, have your focus, have your idea, and then get a mentor, and they'll take you there in a year, then you spending 10 years to get there, you know.
Yeah, exactly. I think, yeah, well, I mean, what you're saying around mentors is so important. And we see all the time, especially, I mean, the world of freelancers, the kind of gig economy, and younger people kind of starting a business as well. It's, you don't want individual, obviously, as you say, I think failure is a big part of your final successes. So as much as you start a business, it will fail, that's a good thing. You should never see it as a negative. But then it's, I mean, I'm talking from experience. It's very hard. It's hard to focus on one thing as much as we say, make sure you just focus on it, because you want to kind of, you feel like, especially our generation, we feel like we've got to do everything really quickly, and it can't be one after another. It's got to be multiple things at a time. So yeah.
I mean, when we talk about focus, I mean, I share the sentiment. I totally get what you mean. Like, I'm one of those people, when I see something, when we're driving past, I'm like, oh my God, how come no one's done that? You know, I need to go and do that. Let me buy the domain. Let me set the business up overnight. But you know, I think there's a lot of people out there that do that. But I think from my own experience and my own arrogance and ego, have I had to really, you know, and people had to tell me, mentors had to tell me to do it, and I couldn't see what I was doing because I was spending too long trying to do everything opposed to just doing the one thing right at a time, you know. So I think it's like, whether it's you're buying a house or whether you have an idea that you want to, you know, be at this position, or if you want to create this business at this time, you can do all these kind of things. But I'm talking about when you're trying to think of doing multiple businesses at the same time, you know, like you can focus in different key parts of your life, you know, like that's not an issue. But it's when you're trying to take on too much, and you're trying to, you can't deliver the best that you possibly can in multiple different things at the same time, you know.
And it's the risk of nothing kind of being a success.
Yeah.
Anyway, Chaz Fliy, thank you so much for kind of coming onto the show today, talking about the projects you're working on and kind of the spirituality that you're kind of putting out there to the world. It's amazing. I'll put all the details of Chaz Fly's kind of social media, because I definitely think you should follow him. And I really do mean it. Like, I went through a phase of kind of getting rid of people on my social media in terms of like trying to make it a bit more motivational and kind of people that positive influence. And yeah, what you put out there is amazing. So yeah, everyone should go follow him, definitely.
Oh, thank you. I think that, I mean that's also linked. You know, when you're talking about standing up in front of people and talking about spirituality, I mean, to put yourself out there sometimes, you know, what you're doing is brilliant. You know, like you put yourself out there as a podcast, but you know, when you're going out there and also trying to give a message of on video, you know, you're talking about spirituality and you're talking about meditation and mindfulness. You know, it's scary as well. You know, like you never know how people are receiving the information. You know, if people like the information, are people getting the information? You know, so I think, you know, I think as long as everyone can support each other and give real good feedback, that's always supportive in any way. You know, so I'd appreciate any comments and any advice people got that they want to learn about or they want to see more of. You know, that's really key for us as creators.
Definitely. Amazing. Thank you so much, Chaz Fliy.